Did you know that 97% of Americans are deficient in omega-3s? While omega-3s are often correlated with fish and fish oil, we here at Ascent Nutrition uniquely water extract our omega-3s from algae, the source of omega-3s. For a limited time, try Ascent Nutrition's algae oil DHA at goascentnutrition.com and use discount code SUMMER10 for 10% off. That's SUMMER10 for 10% off at goascentnutrition.com.
Now, if you and I, say, went to Germany and we decided to get a job under the table, should we be allowed to stay in Germany indefinitely?
No. That's up to the Germans.
Yeah.
You said no, but why?
Because you shouldn't work in a country where you're not allowed to be there.
So,
go through the process. Everybody should process.
Every once in a while, you stumble across a video on the internet.com and you think to yourself, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is reality. Has AI video advanced to such an extent that now it is generating totally ridiculous and stupid responses from people at these protest movements? But, of course, as Anna Kasparian has told us multiple times, it is in fact real.
It's real, guys. It's real.
You just witnessed friend of the channel, Tony Ortiz of Current Revolt, interviewing a woman at the Dallas No Kings protest, asking her a basic question that barely qualifies as a trap question on the issue of immigration, and she completely 100% decided to jump on board with the Trump immigration policy without even realizing it. Of course, it's totally fine when it's in the context of another country because, you gotta respect their borders, their values, their traditions, their laws, but in the United States of America, as we're going to find out, those rules don't apply. In the United States of America, it's just dumb progressive slogan being thrown out in response, and it's not like he's talking to a teenager. This is an older person who's out here explicitly, according to her, to protest the evil orange man because of his fascism.
What brought y'all here today?
Fascism.
Same.
While at the same time, her stated policy preference when you put her on the spot in terms of immigration policy is perfectly aligned with the policy of the evil orange man. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All these different various absolute weirdos that showed up to this event that really give you a good representation of who is showing up to all these protests, because unsurprisingly, they are uneducated, and when some of them dare spit out any kind of policy preference, it turns out they support the evil orange man. They just hate him for being evil and orange, and that's why they're really out there in the streets. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me money, give me money, give me money.
So there's a ton of great reactions in the original video that I'm borrowing clips from, and I recommend you watch it in full. Subscribe to my friend, make sure you leave him a comment and all of that. But it is absolutely hilarious to study this interaction because you could see Tony, who again is a friend of mine, have logical thought processes go on in his brain, ask a follow-up question, only to be greeted by the absolute idiocy of a slogan. In this case, it's no person is illegal, even though, again, she just endorsed barring illegal immigrants from staying in a country if they're coming to work illegally.
So then you're against, the illegals that come here and work?
There's no such thing as an illegal. I disagree.
I'm sorry, I guess I'm just misunderstanding. You just said that we shouldn't be allowed to work in Germany if we're not allowed to be there.
I'm saying if you're allowed to be in Germany and you're allowed to hold a job, then you should be able to. But I don't think that's a reason to put somebody in prison or deport them to a country that's not their own.
Gotcha. But my question, I guess, was if you and I went to Germany and we decided to take a job being paid under the table cash, should we be allowed to stay in Germany indefinitely?
I think that's up to the Germans. I agree with Frankie.
Well, I'm asking you.
It's up to the Germans.
Now look, I'm not saying that I'm somebody who watches other people drown and studies the way that they die just for my own personal entertainment. I would never say that at all whatsoever on this channel, despite the fact that it's 100% true. But this is a perfect example of somebody drowning in this moment, just reaching out, trying to cling to anything, hoping that she will be rescued. So already she's figured out that something was wrong in the two different statements that she said. They are in conflict with one another, and that is causing confusion on the part of this woman. Tony's basic follow-up question has totally, completely shut her down. So rather than just admit defeat or admit the contradiction, she decides to reach out to the other lady who, when they first had their interaction, said that that's up to the German people. That's up to the citizens of Germany to decide, and she thinks that clinging to her response instead of the response that she put forward first is actually actually going to work.
I guess you could say the same law is up to Americans. If Americans decide that we should deport people for the same reasons, that's up to us.
This is your opposition, people. These are the people that come out against you, that show up to these protests, that stand against you, that utter phrases like no person is illegal. The people who can't understand how it's okay for some countries and some citizens to have borders, while it's not okay for the United States of America to have borders, rules, and immigration enforcement. And again, she says early on that she's in favor of deporting criminals if they're convicted and whatnot. That's what she's actually on board with, but for whatever reason, she doesn't extend the same courtesy to the American people that they should be capable of writing their own immigration laws and enforcing their own immigration laws, because she heard someone at some point in time say no person is illegal. We were possibly going to get the no person is illegal on stolen land argument from her, and it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. Again, the premise that the United States of America, and sometimes the broader premise that the Western world, countries that have majority white populations, have no right to actually restrict immigration into their own nations, is absurd, ridiculous, insanely hypocritical, and we see time and time again that no other group of people are asked to take on this burden of just allowing whoever, whenever, even if it changes the cultural landscape of their country, like Americans and Europeans, Canadians as well, and sometimes Australians. But in this particular case, this woman has a very Americentric view, so it is only up to us to bear the burden of having the third world come into our country, because according to her, even Germany has greater rights and autonomy over their own border than the United States of America, because again, no person is illegal. Illegal, that's a word that hurt her feelings, therefore she is lashing out against it. And again, there are other interactions throughout the course of this video that I found absolutely hilarious, like the fact that there is a man that appears to be of Hispanic origin that is marching with what appears to be a foreign flag, unless that's a flag of a state in the United States of America that I just don't quite recognize. And this man says that he's out here because he was horribly offended due to the fact that they asked him for more information when he applied for welfare benefits.
I was asking for benefits from the government.
You were?
Yeah, I was one time. But you know what they did? I feel embarrassed because they came to my house, man, to check him out and make sure I was needing what I was needing. You know, I was going through a struggle financial. And these people, man, this government came to my house to check and make sure how I was doing in my house. I like, dude, that was, for me back then, that was like maybe 20 years ago, man. I felt disrespected by the system. So I was like, you know what? You can keep your benefits. I'm going to work my ass.
Okay, so let's try to understand the logic right here. And by the way, that was a sign. I think there's a flag on one side of the sign, but again, I told you earlier I couldn't confirm it. But again, let's just try to follow what this guy is saying. He's saying that part of the reason he's out here at this No Kings protest, this protest that ostensibly is against the evil orange man Donald J. Trump, is because 20 years ago, he applied for welfare benefits. And when he applied for welfare benefits, citing some sort of need, he was shocked, horrified, embarrassed, and humiliated that representatives from the government actually showed up to his house to, make sure that he was actually in need. And by the way, according to the parameters of his story, he was not in fact in need, because he found this so embarrassing and so humiliating that he decided to say, keep your welfare benefits, stay out of my business. And then he decided to work hard, work his ass off, as he said, for the next 20 years in the United States of America to make sure he can provide for himself. And this is one of the reasons why he's out here protesting against Donald Trump, who was not the president 20 years ago, who had nothing to do with his welfare situation, that again, according to his account of events, he may have been defrauding, but no kings, no King President Trump, no Donald J. King the third Trump president king person, because I was denied welfare benefits because they checked in on me, found out I didn't need them, and that was really embarrassing to my financial financial, whatever that word is he said right there.
No, I was going through struggle, financial.
To my financial status. That's the main issue right here. And again, you have Tony trying to, redirect the conversation to something that's not completely stupid, to something that's relevant to the reason why theoretically they're out here protesting. And again, this is not just a guy who's standing around. He's marching with his own sign. So he asks him about immigration, and this is the response that we get.
Do you think there should be any amnesty for, should there be full amnesty for all people who are non-citizens?
I believe so.
Even the ones that have committed crimes?
Well, not those.
So this guy is also in favor of amnesty for all people who are here illegally. However, I do find it absolutely hilarious that your far left progressives will advocate for illegal immigrant criminals. That's what sanctuary city laws often end up protecting. But even this person is not in favor of the illegal immigrant criminals. Of all the people that they could drag out here to spit out progressive talking points, to have completely incoherent political stances, none of them will buy in, if they're regular ordinary people, to the idea that criminals should be granted amnesty, be immune from deportation, or get any form of citizenship at all whatsoever. This is one of the funniest things about your modern progressive online left, is that when you interview people on the street, even the ones that show up to this rally, they won't go all the way on board with the positions that they advocate for, which is why even when the progressives win, most of the time it seems like they're sowing the seeds for their future defeat. Now again, there are so many good reactions and interactions throughout the course of this video. I highly recommend you watch the whole thing. I'm only going to show you one more, but make no mistake about it, this video is 17 minutes long, but this one I just think is another gem, another wonderful thing that we can discover in a progressive protest that very oftentimes happens to be something that goes down. So here we have a woman that is dressed in all black on a bright, sunny Dallas summer day, and it appears that she and other people are trying to obstruct the camera, prevent Tony from actually being able to do his interview, and then at some point in time, she decides to do what I can only describe as attempted running away, only to stumble a little bit, make it to a tree that, again, when we see at the start of the video, is in frame, it is only feet away, and she's totally gassed out, totally winded. I mean, the woman looks like she's about to die. I'm pretty sure Tony had to call an ambulance for her. They needed to get an IV with fluids in order to hydrate this woman, maybe a popsicle or two, because obviously she can't hang in the Dallas heat, and maybe, just maybe, she's regretting dressing in all black for this particular event. And of course, she tries to run away, get away from the camera. Tony ends up interviewing her, asking her if she's okay, asking her a few questions, and she says that she doesn't want to be on camera, which is all you have to say, because, we're not crazy people on the right who just want to interview absolutely everyone, regardless of whether or not they give consent or not, and then he just walks away. Now, possibly this is because he didn't want to take on the liability when this woman hits the ground. Possibly this was because he didn't want a crack in the earth to form after she hits the ground and swallow him up whole. Nobody will know. We won't be able to examine what's going on in his mind. But yeah, this I just found to be an absolutely hilarious interaction among many, many others. Again, one of the ones that I didn't show you is the one where the left-wing people who are obviously in favor of giving the homeless all these benefits were chased away by a homeless person that Tony also managed to interview. Again, check out the full video in the description of this video, but I want to know what you guys think about the makeup and the character of those present at the No Kings protest. Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, as per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about interviews at the No Kings protest. Till next time.